Welcome to CIME. Once again, I'm your host, Rashawn Warren. Today, we're going to have a high speed person on. It's going to talk a little bit about the narrative of being a father. We got Jason Lewis, aka Sergeant Major Lewis. Let's go. Hey, welcome everyone. It's me again, Rashawn Warren, the host of CIME. Today we got a special guest, and we're going to be talking about the fearless fathers. So we got this gentleman on. Jason Lewis is what the world calls him, but what I call him at work is Sergeant Major Lewis. Sergeant Major, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, sir? Good to be here today.
Hey, you know what? I'm glad you were able to take some time out of your busy schedule. I know with work, with your family, you always got some stuff going on, but I wanted to kind of get with you today and engage a little bit about what it feels like to be a father, and with your job and with everything that's going on with you and trying to get your perspective. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell the world about you.
All right, so I'm Jason Lewis. As you said, I was born in Camden, New Jersey, but I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana. Married with children, right? So I've been in the military over 25 years now. Honored to be able to serve our great nation, and then it's just as much of an honor to be a father to a large group of children that me and my wife have. I've been married once, was divorced, and now I'm married again. And so we have a unique blend of children. And so it's a big family. Some people would almost equate it to as a small basketball team, right? So it's just an honor and a privilege, right?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. I can feel you as being a father myself. To my son. My son is 21 years old, right? So he grew up fast, and I'm pretty sure you kind of experiencing the same thing. So how does it feel, kind of to be in the military and watching the kids grow so fast?
I tell you, man, I was you equated to like trying to grab sand in your hand, man. It's just you get a bundle of it and it just seeps right through it, and that's how fast that time kind of goes in your life, right? And so I can think back to being that young man joining the military at 19, 20 years old, and now being on the other spectrum end of the age, right? A bit older and seasoned in our life, right? And so, starting off real young, my kids were real small. Obviously, when I joined the military, but I have some in their all close to their 30s, and then some in their still preteen ages. And I tell you what, uh, that time flies by in the military. You're doing so much. You're moving around often, and if you blink, you'll miss it. But again, it's just been an awesome experience to witness them grow at a rapid pace as they have.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, we've had many talks about being a father, about some of the things that you're doing with your youngsters. But I tell you about like my son, how he get on my nerves sometimes. But he's paying attention to me and the things that I'm doing. I think we just had a conversation with Command Sergeant Major Brown about like how like they're looking at us, how our youngsters are looking at us, and how we're looking at them. When you started thinking about being a father and the picture that you're painting for your youngsters, what's the first thing that pops into your mind when you think about how they view you?
So, I guess I'll share a story with you, right? So growing up, I didn't have my father. Well, my father was with us until about to my preteen ages, and then my mother and my father they separated, right? And so during that time, I got a chance to witness my father, and he made sure that he instilled some values in us. He was once in the military as well, and then I was blessed enough to have individuals in my life, whether it was in my community, whether it was in the church that I went to, that poured into me, right? And so I looked at these these gentlemen and right and how they carried themselves, how they were with their own families, right? And I took that and I wanted to, instill that into being a father with my children. So again, like the conversation we had the other day, right? Your children are always they always watching you, and they're silent watchers, right? It's kind of like a soldier in the military, right? Sometimes they're looking at a leader and they may not ever tell that leader they're looking at him, but they're looking at him as either a mentor, as a role model, right? And so your children are doing that often, and so you want to make sure that you're not being fake, you know what I'm saying, but you're also just representing, you want that your child to be as close as to you as possible, but you want to be able to exhibit those characters of loyalty and truth and respect, and demonstrate those things all the time.
Oh yeah, that's a good breakdown. That's a good breakdown. Hey, Herman, thanks for that breakdown. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back, and I want to try to get some stories from you about how it is to be a father.
Focus up. Hey man, zoom in. Hey. Welcome. My name is Chris Rubio of the Rubio Method. Soak it in. Wear it as a nice sweatshirt, a nice yellow sweatshirt. See if it fits. And it may be something you say, okay, I'm listening to, but I don't really like it. Not for me. What the hell are you thinking? You have no idea what you're talking about. You have issues because of your bad taste.
All right, and we're back. We're back with Jason Lewis. Hey, we talked a little bit first about being a father, and you mentioned something interesting. You talking about like that they're silent watchers. Like though we're going through our everyday lives, we're doing the best that we can or the best we feel that we are doing. They're sitting there paying attention of us every step of the way. So can you share a personal story that like kind of captures the essence of your journey as a father?
Uh, so I have a dynamic group of children, right? So I was married once at a younger age, right? And we have four children in my first marriage, and then two with my second wife, right? And so I guess some of the stories that I can think of is just the one time I was getting ready to go on a deployment, right? And Caden, who is our youngest son, right? He was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I was getting ready to go out the door, and I wanted to give him a big hug because I knew, like you kind of mentioned earlier, that time can either go pretty fast on a deployment, it can go pretty slow on a deployment, and so I wanted to just make sure that he understood that I'd be gone for a little while and or for a amount of time, right? And so tried to give him a hug, but he didn't want to hug, and it kind of hurt me a little bit, but I think he didn't realize that he thought I was just going for a couple of days and I'd be back and I'd be gone that long length of a time, and uh, so I guess one of the stories is that just being able to spend that time with him on that deployment through via Zoom or dang on what was it then different platforms that you could talk to visualize and see your children and watching them grow, and so coming back, he had been first talking and everything. Now he's up, he's running, he's moving around, he's playing baseball, he's playing soccer, and it just was a dynamic time to witness through a year times of being on a platform to be able to see him grow.
Yeah, and different occupations have different requirements, right? And and what we do, we typically get up, roll out for at the minimum sometimes 12 months, and then we got to come back. And when we come back, we're trying to fit back into the fold. You know, that's that's a year gone of an individual that we're supposed to be nurturing and developing. They don't get that, and we didn't get the opportunity to do that. And we think about it every day while we're going anyway. I think that's one of the unique challenges that both you and I may face as it pertains to being in the military. So kind of a little bit of what I explained. How do you think that differs, like so those challenges that I just discussed, and from being in the military father or as opposed to being a father that's not in the military that's just working at 9 to 5? How do you navigate that, or do you even think about that?
So yeah, so being in the military, we get up fairly early, right in the morning to get our exercise on, and we've been doing that for many of years, right? And so that's an hour of time that's kind of taken away. And then by the time you get back, your child, your spouse has probably already gotten your child ready, got their school clothes on, they've got their lunch bags ready, and they're getting ready to go out the door. And so you might get a chance to see them for 10, 15 minutes, and then you're on your way off to work, and then you spend an exorbitant amount of time at work. And I guess you just got to be able to gauge that thing, right? And set it up to where, hey, you know that just as much as your job requires you, you know what I'm saying, your family also requires that time of you. And so you just got to be cognitive of how you're going to break down or gauge that time to where, hey, a job requirement is this, but when I'm off, all my time belongs to, my family, or whether it's my whatever that hobby is, or whatever that thing that helps you focus your mind or re-engage for the next day's battle, whether that's in the military or outside of the military. You just got to be able to gauge that time so that you use it wisely with your family.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the fatherhood is all about, right? You just can't think about yourself. You know, um, a lot of times I believe that we put ourselves on the back burner for the greater good for everybody else. We do recognize the sacrifices, but we also want to make sure that our family knows that we're there for them and we care about them and that we love them, especially the youngsters. So, when let's talk about when you first became a father all the way to this point now. Like how has your perspective evolved over that time from when you was a young person with a kid to now you're an old guy with a kid?
Emphasis on that old guy, right?
Oh man,
uh, right. Hey, we still getting after it, right?
Oh yeah.
So what I would say is, as a young man, right, is that I would say my maturity level, probably as a younger father, was not where it probably needed to be, right? So I'm young, I'm 19, I'm 20 years old, and, and really I'm an adult, right? I'm in the military. I'm able to do certain things now that I'm no longer staying with my mother. But in a little bit, I'm still like a young man, right? And so my maturity level, and what I say by maturity levels was that I had two daughters when I first joined the military, and so you know how us young men is. You play video games and you want to come home, you want to get on the game system, whichever one it is may be, and you play that video game, and you kind of find yourself dedicating yourself to that time, right? And so
Mhm.
my maturity level was like, all right, let me play this game, then I'm gonna spend time with my family. When I'm older, you know what I'm saying? I guess I'm a bit more mature. I'm a bit more. I hope I'm a little bit more mature. I'm a little bit more wiser to where when I come in the door, I'll speak of Caden a lot probably in this video or on this segment, right? Is that Caden greets me every day with, I mean, he almost wants to tackle me when I come through the door, right? With this big affectionate love hug, right? And um and so I know from there it's time to put the backpack down, kiss the wife, talk to her about her day, and then it's kind of just me and Caden and doing whatever he wants to do, whether it's going outside to shoot basketball or taking him back to the gym to walk around the circular track, or just whatever he wants to do to kind of invest that time into him.
Oh man, that's good because so I guess over the continuum from young man to older, more mature, handsome guy, right? You figured out like, hey, you know what? At the beginning, I was not totally dialed in. I was still worried about doing young folk stuff. But as you became more responsible over the timeline, as everyone was growing, you started to realize like, hey, you know what? These are my kids, my family. They need my attention. They need a certain level of maturity. Was it hard to get to that point, or was it kind of just like? Did you notice that you was transitioning to being a bit more mature, or when did you realize like dang man, I've been playing that game all day, and I should have been giving time to my family?
Right. So it took some time, but I started to notice, after a while, maybe I just didn't have the love and affection for that game as much as I wanted to, right? And I realized, your kids are walking, are they talking, are they on their way to first grade, and hey, go down there and make sure that they get on the bus and spend some quality time with them. It's kind of like, talking about being a leader, right? It's a difference of being present and showing your presence, right? And so
Hmm.
maybe that maturity level was I was just present at the time. And then as I started to grow older and a bit wiser, I knew I had to represent my presence of being in the home. I needed to be there more and be more engaged and take a little bit more off the plate of my spouse, and help challenge and grow all of my children.
Oh yeah, and that's no easy task. 'Cause, like some people think you can just like snap your fingers and then turn on and then you're
No.
right there. You know what? This is what I need to do. But it don't happen like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. It takes some time, right? And it's what they say, crawl, walk, run phase, right? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
at one point in time, I guess at that maturity level, I was kind of crawling, right? And then I got to a part to where I started walking, and then I got into a groove to where, hey, you're a little bit more mature, man. That is not nearly as important what it is of sitting down, making sure that the homework is getting completed, or sitting down, reading a book at nighttime, or sitting down and just letting them tell you about their day, whether it was just playing at the park or recess playing football. It takes some time, but we all get there at some point.
Yeah, yeah, and and I guess I also ask like, is it difficult to share, your levels of growth with other people? So like with you and your wife right now, do you like say, hey, you know what? Hey, well, babe, this is where we at, and this is kind of where I'm at mentally with the kids. Do you have those discussions, or when you start thinking about being a father?
So I will say that no, we don't. I don't have that challenge. I guess we just kind of we agreed, like when we got together, that hey, we're going to be able to talk this thing out, right? And so if it seems something like something's off kiltered, or something is starting to shift a little bit, hey, let's talk, let's focus, and let's get ourselves back to where we were before, right? And so when it comes to raising the children, right, is if it's two people in the house, it's a two-person team, right? And it can't just be your way or the highway. It has to be involved in whether it's you and your spouse, whoever that may be, right? And so and we have that conversation of, hey, if things don't seem right, if I'm saying something to Caden, or Tyrese, or Brandon, Journey, Christopher, Najee, any of them, right? You know what I'm saying? We got to be on the same page to be able to, like, this is the way we're going to discipline. This is the way we're going to be, and that's how it is.
Oh yeah, the teamwork make the dream work, as they
That's
say.
right.
Um,
Exactly.
do you recall like any specific moments that like tested your resilience, like as a father, and how did you overcome it?
So I'll talk about, again, so I'm married twice, and so the first divorce with my first wife, right? And so that was one of a trying time, right? And the reason why I say that is because I went from having, children in the house to being, single, right? And so I didn't have my children. And then I met my second wife, and we have children together, and then I guess I just was able to overcome that because the resiliency is that, hey, figure out a way to where you still can be a part of your children's life, whether you're in Texas. How can you get to your home state to be able to have your children, right? And so a thing was, hey, during Christmas, during holidays, during birthdays,
Mhm.
hey, I'm going down there, whether it's the turn and burn 5 hours to pick them up, to bring them back to where I am, so we can share that time together. Whether it's a birthday that you're going down there for a couple of hours and then you got to be back at your duty station, whatever the case may be. I had to overcome that, that trying time of not necessarily always having the kids in the home, to like figuring out how you're still going to be an active role in your family or in your children's life.
Oh yeah, because it's not easy, right? So if you go from one relationship and then that thing just don't work out, and then you get involved in another relationship, um, and you got kids in both, the dynamic as a father is totally out of whack, right? Like you're saying, like you're not in the house with them, you don't see them every day. There's some things that you got to think about how to make sure that you're showing that time to both groups of I mean, I don't want to say groups because they're all your kids, but two different locations. And you
Right.
don't want anyone to feel like, hey, you know what, dad don't love you. Is that kind of some of the things that you thought about?
This is you hit the nail on the head, right? You know, you don't want one group, or like you say, not a group, but you don't want one set of children to feel, you know, estranged to you, right? Because you're at home with, you know, two other children, right? And you're spending that quality time with them. But again, you know, we had to work that thing out to where, hey, when we all come together, we're all one just big family. We all jump in two different sets of cars, and if we're going to establishments to go play, you know, golf or play video games or whatever the case may be, hey, we're all going together as a family, you know, and you're my sister, and you're my brother, whether it's by blood or marriage, but we're a family, and that's what we are.
Oh, that's good. Hey, thanks for the rundown. Hey, so sorry, we're gonna go to a quick commercial break, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk a little bit about balance in your home and balance in the career.
Hi, Joel Maurer, founder of Dink Ninjas. Dink Ninjas was dreamed up and started right here in Austin, Texas, a dynamic pickleball community. We arm pickleballers with the paddles, apparel, and accessories to dink like a ninja. Dink Ninjas is dedicated to supporting mental health awareness and cancer research. Shop our full lineup at dinkninjas.com.
All right, we're back. So, you know, we had a great discussion about like the dynamics of fatherhood and the way you see it and how you're trying to make sure everyone gets your attention, but also how you yourself are trying to just make sure that you're doing what's right as your path as a father. You know, we talked a little bit about the occupation and you know, all your years of service and being in the military thus far. And we know it's difficult, but how do you, as a soldier, you know, strive to balance your career, your personal life, and fatherhood in your midlife?
Um, so yeah, again, you got to be able to gauge that thing, right? As a father, um, you know, the saying is like you know, children don't pick their parents, right? You know, so as a father, you have to be engaged, right? That time that you spend with your children day in and day out. And I'm not, again, I'm not gonna say that I did it perfect because you know there was some areas in my life that where I could have done things a lot better, right? But being able to balance that work and balance your day to day with your children is essential to the growth of your children, right? You're there with your children uh, day in and day out. They see you. They want to, like you and I spoke earlier, right? A lot of our children want to be a version of us, and it's incumbent upon us to be able to give them the best version that they can see, right?
Yeah, that's true. I heard once before somebody said that whatever your maximum is in life is your child's minimum, and what that means is that whatever dad or whatever mom accomplished, that's what that kid says. Hey, that's what's possible for me, you know. And our job is to try to give them those extra tools to help them exceed us. But the way that we do it is by pouring into them, by making sure they got that time. You know, I know you take Katie golfing, you out there, you know, trying to get Tiger Woods going, right? You know, but but and to me, you know, I see that and then I value that. You know, that makes me I already value you as a person, but it makes me value you as a father also because I'm like, man, this dude is a sergeant major in the Army, responsible for all of this stuff. And he is making a concerted effort to make sure that he spends some time and teach his child something new. Even if it's like, you're like, hey, how do you record that and you went and got the
Yeah.
GoPro so you can help for those memories, right? I mean, those things not lost on me. I'm like, oh, he's doing these things because he wants to have these memories. He wants his kid to see the great stuff that the kid is doing, but you being there for him. So with that being said, how do you foster a positive and supportive relationship with your children? And so you say you got multiple kids. How do you make sure that you have a positive relationship with all of them?
Right. So you got to stay engaged. And again, the older they get, sometimes, you know what I'm saying, you'll see them. You can engage with them, and they may, talk to you a little bit, and hey dad, I'm working now. They some of them have started their own family, right? And so you just hope that at some point in time that you have poured enough into them, kind of like you mentioned just now, like with Caden, right? You want to pour as much into them as you possibly can while they're young, right? And so you just try to, being overseas, right, like we are now, right, you just try to keep that constant dialogue with them. I'll say me and Christopher, we'll chat every now and then, or chat often, right? And he's a big sports guy. I won't call out his football team, but he has a team, right? And I kind of give him some mess about it, but that's the way me and him we talk to each other, right? And the same thing with the rest of the kids. You just try to stay engaged with them, but it starts by pouring into them at an early age. I joke with my wife about Caden, right? That Caden is like, my best friend, right? Because again, when I come through the door, Caden is just like Caden wants all that time that you have, and we'll get off sometimes pretty late at night, and it's a couple of hours left in the day, but what I notice is that if I'm spending that time with them, right, and I'm listening to him how he did at school, or I'm listening to him how, like he was at the park, or whatever the case may be, or he's teaching me new things, right? Because it is not just me teaching him. Him being younger, he's teaching me things as an old man, right? And so he's pouring into me, I'm pouring into him, and you just got to keep pouring into your children to, keep that growth going, and then you hope that trickles down to the next generation, that they're doing that to their children as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One time, me and Rakim, we were taking a trip across country, and Rakim, like, he was little. I think he was like 8 or 9. He just turned to me and looked at me and was like, "You did this with your dad?" I was like, "I don't know my dad, Rakim." So Rakim, like, he sat back and he looked out the window, and then he turned back and looked at me. Probably like 5 minutes later, he says, "I feel sorry for you." And I'm like, "What?" I said, "Why you feel sorry for me?" And he said, "Because your dad didn't do stuff for you." And I was like, "Rakim, don't worry about it." I said, "You just make sure you do this with your kids. All the way what you're saying, like, you're doing this stuff, you hope it trickles down." I had that conversation. Rakim make me feel sad. Sometimes he thinks he's my dad already anyway. So I have a hard time with that guy. So I have a question for you though. So how do you handle conflicts and hardships with the children and within the family? How do you handle that?
Oh, yeah, handling conflicts, right? You got to be able to, I guess, be wise enough to discern, hey, how you going to, maybe discipline something. Like, I'll give you an example of, at one point in time, uh, coming to a family with maybe children that are not biologically yours, and you know you're trying to figure your child out, your child is trying to figure you out, and there's going to be some times and some challenges that that child has his own father, and you're not necessarily trying to come in and say that, hey, I'm your father, but I'm the male figure in this home, and right, and so I just want to be able to discipline you the way that I think is the right way to do it, because when you do decide to leave out of these doors, right, you're going into a world that's going to see you. Uh, they may treat you some sort of way, right, and so I want to be able to prepare you for that. But sometimes it can be a little bit of head button, because you know that you're trying to figure that child out, and your child is trying to figure you out. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that that you're providing them the best. So when they do leave your home, again, kind of like you just said, like you start your own family, that that you're being a good rule and compass and guide for your family.
Yeah, and people got to remember too, like you know how to lead the way you know how to lead. Only thing that you can draw from are your experiences and your willingness to learn. That's what makes you the best person, the best husband, the best father. And when you kind of talk about headbutting, like I guess when you got like multiple kids and there's some are biological and some are not, you know, if you've been with your kid a certain time and you interact with your kid a certain way and maybe you play sports and you fight on your kid and you do all this stuff and then you have another kid that's just not into all that, not trying to
Right.
hear it. But now you find yourself um on this balancing act of who you are, who that kid is, and who that kid is, and trying to meld all of those together. You encounter all that?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and so it goes again. So my oldest biological son name is Christopher, and so what I try to, explain to my children that, we're not my biological son. Is the way I interact with Christopher is the way I want to interact with you, you daily. I want to be able to, like you just said, wrestle and play and joke and have fun with you, but at the same time discipline you. And you understand what I'm disciplining you, but at the same time give you that love and affection that you need, right? Because let's talk about that, because we as males, what I'm saying, we may not talk about that. We, that love and being, they might consider that being soft or whatever the case may be, but I think that's important to tell your child that you love them, to speak that thing into their ear, right? Because that might be, you telling your child that you love them might be able to be an example that they could tell a kid, hey man, come on in here, bro. I love you, man. How you doing today?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And that might be
yeah.
that child's first time ever hearing, I love you today, right? So the same way that I will be with, with Christopher is the same I want to be with Tyrese, same way I want to be with Caden, same way I, all of the children, right? Is no different, but that sometimes you gotta, it's a balancing act, and you gotta figure out how are you going to do that, right?
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. So, since we're talking about how we're balancing things, like, are there any specific values or lessons you aim to instill in your kids?
So I'll start with a story that my mother told me before I got ready to leave her house, before I got ready to join the military. Right, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Hey, if you got to think about doing something twice, chances are you're about to do something that you shouldn't do." Right, and I wish I would have listened to my mother, right? But again, being young and thinking I know the world and I'm getting ready to join the military, hey, and it was plenty of opportunities that I could have thought, I thought twice about something, and I probably should have thought a third time and not done what I did, right? And so um trying to instill that into my children, like, hey, discipline, like loyalty, trust, being respectful, being an upstanding person, right? Always being able to have a reason to talk about the hope that within you, that character that that me and my wife and my ex-wife, how they want our children to be raised. But you definitely want them to have good morals and good standards, right? Be treat people like the way they want to be treated, right?
Yeah,
And just show that respect for one another, right?
yeah, yeah. That's absolutely, treat others the way that you want to be treated. That's kind of hard sometimes, right? Because people can do stuff to us, and we start getting into our feelings, and we throw all that out the window. 'Cause we're like, you know what? I'm done with this guy. But we can't be like that with our children as our children continue to grow, because innately they're going to do a bunch of things that we probably wouldn't do, and we have to be understanding. Like, so when we think about all that stuff, like, what what does what does mentorship how does mentorship play into your approach of being a father?
So I guess you gave a class not too long ago about mentorship, right? And you talked about how most soldiers are going to come and find their mentors, right? You just can't go up to somebody and just tell you. You can go up to somebody and tell them, hey, I'm gonna be your mentor, but they may not want you to be their mentor. They may want somebody else, and you can't get into your feelings, as you just said about somebody another soldier choosing to be somebody else's mentor. So it's just like with your children, like as a mentor, as a father, right? You want to give them the tools that of success, right? And so you think about, all right, what did I do when I was a young dad coming up? How can I tell my boys or tell my girls, specifically the boys, right? Hey, don't do that. Don't do this. Don't follow that step that I did, right? Trust me, I beat my head up against the wall. Do not do that, right? And you wish you could just write them on a tablet and just give them all the things that you did incorrectly, right? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we can't. Uh, so you just try to show them daily, right? And being that mentor, sitting down with them, spending that time with them, talking to them, divesting all of your energy sometimes into them, right? And just trying to show them, hey, there is a way that seems right, but make sure that you do what is right.
Oh yeah, because we don't have all the answers. I mean,
Right.
honestly, when it boils down to it, just what you said, we're doing what we think is right. We're drawing in on our experiences and what we had and what we didn't have. And I'll tell you this. So I consistently do things for Rakim that was never done for me. And what I mean by that, like since I did not grow up with my father, I used to want to do a bunch of different things that I saw other kids doing. So what I ended up doing was everything that I ever wanted to do as a child, I started doing it with Rakim. I just like I wanted to do this. Hey, let's go here. Let's go do that. I didn't necessarily have a mentor um, or a guy to draw off of. Nobody in the streets, nobody in the family, like nobody. So I was just kind of making it up as I go, and I'm pretty sure Rakim was like pissed about a bunch of stuff, but I was trying my best. And when I think about that, so we're thinking about society now, right? We're seeing a lot of kids growing up with grandma, growing up with just mom, or maybe dad is not around. As it pertains to societal expectations, um, how are you currently navigating the societal expectations while being a father?
Right. Again, so like growing up without and I don't want to say without my dad, because as I got older, my dad was a part of my life, and but society was, what I'm saying, that hey, some males, they grow up without that father, and they may go a certain way, right? And so you definitely want to make sure that you're giving them the best tools for your child, right? So uh society is going to see that or they will say that a child that grows up while without their father may not be as strong or independent, or could be a lazy character, right? But I don't think that's necessarily true, because I didn't necessarily have my father in my house. I did have my mother, right? uh, so you got to break that barrier and say, hey, nope. um, if you're there as a male, not just the children in your house, right? But there's children on your street that
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
may not have their father, right? And so those are some of your children's friends. You know what I'm saying? You can pour into them just as much as you're pouring into your own child.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah. Like I looked at other people's fathers and kind of saw how they was conducting business. Um, when you think about your legacy, the legacy of Jason Lewis, uh, is that something that's on your mind, or is it influencing your actions as a parent?
Um, I legacy, what I'm saying, something that I guess by definition is something that has happened in a person past event, or something that's happened to somebody's life, and so having boys, sometimes men would like, hey, I got a son, they're gonna carry out my name. But what is your name? What are you making your name to be, right? And so are you doing the things right yourself to make your name continue to live on, right? And so I don't say I necessarily think about that. I think about that. Hey, long as these young men grow up to be productive, and these young ladies they grow up to be productive members of society, you know, then I think we've done our part as parents, right? Um, and I think that's the big thing, the big takeaway about that.
Yeah, do our part, do what we're supposed to do, build our own name based off of who we are, and let that be what everybody else remembers about us. But the kids gotta do their own thing. Hey, Stormy, we're gonna go to a quick commercial break, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk a little bit about the connection with our kids.
Hey, it's AC of AC Sports Live, an interactive sports talk show where your comments are part of the show. Every show we focus on the sports stories of today, with commentary on sports takes, my 2 cents, which is a reaction to my social media feed, Sports Flicks, where we take a look at sports movies and give a quick review. We have a segment called Mental Reps, where we have words of inspiration to help battle the dark side of men's mental health. And then there's the Tender Love Report. Who's being soft or petty in the world of sports? All takes are welcome under one condition. Say it with your chest. I'll see you there.
All right, so let's talk about how we maintain a strong connection with our children as they navigate their own lives. So our children, they're going through their own lives. We see them, we're watching them live it. How do we make sure that we have that connection where we think it needs to be as they're out there doing their own thing?
Uh, Being engaged, right? Being that we'll use the word engaged leader. You see them growing up, you want to keep them from going the wrong way, right? I say, oftentimes I pray for my children at nighttime that, hey, what I'm saying, Lord, if you see them going in a way that is not the right way, grab them by the reins of their minds and, get them on the path of where they need to be, right? Uh, but they grow up so fast, and it's just some things that are going to do that are not going to be the things that there's no way I taught you to do that, right? How did you make that decision, right? But you bring them in and you love them and you say, hey, all right, well, you learned that lesson. What did you learn from that lesson, right? All right, well, not to do this, make sure I, pay this on time, make sure that, what I'm saying, I make it to work on time, whatever the case may be. And you just kind of like, all right, well, you learned that lesson, try not to do that one again. If you're going to do something, don't let it be that. Let it be something else that you're learning a lesson from, right?
Yeah, I like that how you say there's no way I taught you how to do that. Because those are the things that run through our mind when our kids make some of those decisions. But also I would say, is kind of what you alluded to, you got to still be supportive. You can't tear them down just because they did something that you wouldn't have necessarily done, or something that you've done in the past and they just crossing that line right then and there too. Rakim once said to me, I asked him, was you mad about something? He says, well, I was mad. He says, but I understood what you was coming from because you always had smart conversations with me. You always explained to me why you were doing what you were doing. So even though he was mad, he had the context behind it, and I was consciously doing that with him because like you said, I want to have a good relationship with him all the way through, all the way till my clock is out, right? And that was my way of doing it. Like I got to stay on you, guy, but I got to make sure that I still love you in those moments. Have you ever had any moments where you had to redefine your role as a father?
It, it, Yeah, I'll jump in, because when you ask that question, I think about how I was raised and how I was disciplined, right? And I won't share how I was disciplined, but there, at our times there was a way that you got disciplined, right? Yeah, we call it tough love, right? And I'm grateful for it, right? Because I think that's probably what I needed at times. I wasn't I ain't gonna say I was a bad child, but I probably tested my mother's limits at time, right? Um, and so I guess evolving in how I discipline my children, right? And so I had to figure out, hey, just like a soldier may ask you why, why are we doing this? At the time, maybe young sergeant or staff sergeant, and in my mind is, it's gonna sound probably a little cruel because I told you that's what needs to be done, right? And so maybe that's what you're telling your children: hey, get up and do this because this is the way it needs to be done. But then you start as you get older, you realize, well, did you give them the purpose, motivation, and direction of why you needed that to be done, right? And so, hey, if the question is asked why, be able to give be able to give a response about why it needs to be done because X, Y, and Z, because this, because whatever the case may be. And I think that's how I think I involve discipline in my children, like being able to understand that hey, there's a way to do it, there's an alternative way to do it. Figure out how you can mix those things together to be able to be a good disciplinarian of your household.
Oh man, that's a good response, man. Because I was having a conversation with this guy one day, and well, actually, I was on the phone with Rakim, and I was telling him something. He was so mad, and I was like, "Hey, man," I said, "I'm trying to be a good dad, bro." I said, "This is what you need to do, and then get back with me." And I said, "Don't act like that. I love you." Bye. Got off the phone, and then the old boy was like, "You don't owe him no explanation." I'm I'm like, dude, you the same dude that was just talking to me about how you don't got a good relationship with your kid. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we owe them that. Like I know there's different, I came up, my mom was like, do it, and I knew not to ask no questions, right? But I was often confused. Like, what does she want from me? And I knew if I messed it up, I was going down. But I'm serious. I'm serious. But man, it taught me some resilience, though. I'm telling you. But with
Yeah.
Rakim, I want to make sure that he understands. I want to make sure that if he messed this up, it was because of his own cognitive ability, not because I didn't give him so what. So and as we talk about that, right? And then so we're talking about how we get on them, discipline them, or making sure they understand. But like, what positive aspects of fatherhood do you believe often get overlooked or underestimated?
I think I mentioned it earlier, right? Some of the positive things is just expressing, right? Saying verbally how you feel about your children, right? Oftentimes, and this can be anybody, right? Oftentimes, us as men, and me and you, the way we probably were raised, like you didn't hear that love word from maybe another male, right? You just didn't hear it. And maybe because that is how that generation came up, and then we were raised that way. And so being able to express vocally how you feel sometimes gets, I think, maybe underlooked as being a father. You got to be able to express, like, you can go buy them and do all this stuff in the world for them. But you know what I'm saying? Eventually that's going to run out. Like, did my father or did my mother, did they tell me? Did they I mean, I got they showed me, but you know, I would sometimes hearing it reinforces what's going on daily in your life.
Man, yeah, man, you hitting home right now because I don't, I don't think I ever had a guy tell me that they love me. I don't think I ever had a adult figure male tell me that they love me. Thinking about that, I grew up. I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up in the streets and there was a lot going on, and maybe people thought that that would be weak, but I was taught to survive. I was
Mm.
taught to like throw down if you had to. Don't take nothing from nobody. If they want to fight, hit first. I was taught all of those lessons, and I don't recall anybody outside of my mom, my grandma, and them telling me that they love me. But I do tell you this. So every time I talk to Rakim before I get off the phone, I tell him I love you and I miss you. I've been telling him that since he was a kid because I too agree with you. I think that's overlooked and underestimated. how much that we can tell our kids that we love them, because we don't know if we're going to be here tomorrow. And they only going to be able to live off of the last words that we gave them. Man, that's, that's, whew, dang, man. Thinking about that.
Yeah.
Let me not get sad right now. Hey, all right. So if you were to leave the people out there who's watching this with some nuggets, what would your nuggets be as it pertains to a fearless father? What would you want to leave those folks with about parenthood?
I guess I'd probably leave them with again, like what values that you're raising to your children. You know, obviously, you know what I'm saying, we want to make sure that our children are given 100% all the time, right? Me and my best friend would always say, and it's probably somebody's phrase, so I don't know who to, get a credit to, but we would always say phrases when we would get off the telephone when we were kids, and we would always say like nothing less than our best, right? And as a parent, we want to make sure that we're not giving nothing less than our best every day, in and out. We're laying it on the line, right? But we're putting everything that we have, all our energy, all our time, what I'm saying, into the family structure. And then, obviously it starts with, whatever higher being for me is God. That's, first for me, my wife, then my children, my family. And so when I figure out, how to give that time to them, that's it. So nothing less than your best. Give all you can, and trust me. I think the reward, it will reap its. You will reap the reward later on in life.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for the nuggets. And Star Major, as we go into closing, I want to thank you for your time, but I also want to go out there and say how, if people want to get a hold of Star Major Lewis, and Jason Lewis, because he touched their lives today, how would they do that? You got the social accounts, you got the email you want to give to the folks out there?
Yeah, you can reach out to me at Road Less Traveled 25. That's my Instagram. If you want to reach me by email, it's WDAT24 at Gmail or at Yahoo.com. You can find me on Facebook, Jason Lewis. That's just some of the platforms that I'm on if you want to try to get in contact with me.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that we get those on in writing, so we can get those out to you all. Hey, everyone out there, this is Rashawn Warren, Star Major Lewis, and this is CIME, and we're out.